But hopefully everybody had a great week. Looks like we do have kind of a light room today, but that's okay because it'll be good to open the room to talk about questions. There's so much going on, I feel, in our space, and in other sectors that we need to pay attention to, I feel, that will affect our everything, our buying criteria, is what asset classes we focus on, right? So what markets too. But beforehand, why don't we just go into leads, needs, good deeds if anybody has anything? Anybody's in contract or making offers? Oh, Sheena, Chris Allen's asking for the ID. Do you have his
Oh,
number?
I think I do. Let me go ahead and
Okay,
send
I'll
it to him.
text it to you anyways. Sorry guys, 1 second. It always messes everybody up when it's like we've been doing it on Fridays at 10 a.m. Hawaii time for 3 years, or yeah, 3 years. So whenever there's like daylight savings and the time goes back and like get all messed up. All right. Well, if nobody has anything, then why don't we just jump into uh some main topics. So one thing, the reason why I wanted to kind of do a call a little earlier last week was because there was a lot of things going on, and with some of the bank failures. But how does it relate to? I always try to relate it to the investor side, because that affects it. We're boots on the ground, we're the front lines, the vanguard, So um one is I always like to hear what's going on out there with people making offers or looking at properties, watching markets. And then and two, also share what I'm hearing, from our capital partners who we just went to go visit, and the NPLA. Oh, we have Amy came on from the NPLA. She's the managing director of the NPLA. So it's a huge honor. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Corey. Thanks for
Thank you for
having me
joining.
on.
If you don't mind, Amy, if you have like 10 or like 5 minutes or something, I can just throw you the mic about just the NPLA and also the conversations that are going on, because Amy is in the middle of all of it. Okay, so think about all the people the majority, like the people who are in the NPLA, majority of them control, like to collectively control majority of the money in our space. When it comes to private money, right? And like whether it's fix and flip loans, ground construction, um, many of those founders and CEOs are in the NPLA, and Amy has to manage all of them. So credit to you. Amy's like the association would, we need Amy. So because Amy
Oh,
is
thanks, Corey.
our connector, and she makes the whole thing run. So actually, Amy, if you don't mind, maybe I just start throwing it to you right now since you're on the phone.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, I won't take 5 or 10 minutes, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's great to be on here. And one of the best resources that the MPLA offers, I think, are our biweekly conference calls. We have, anywhere from like 50 to 70 companies who are on those meetings and sharing inside information of what's going on, what they're seeing in their business, sharing information. And right now, I think that's just key, is wanting to feel like you're in the know and knowing what's going on. And that's why even like coffee talk, a room like this is great. It's great feedback. Just hearing, whether it's best practices or changes that are happening in the industry. So it's great to be on this call. But the MPLA, we're looking to represent our members, represent the industry, whether that's on a legislative front or whether that's with best practices or ethics. But Corey does a great job. I mean, he's a co-chair of our membership committee. We're just launching a mentorship program, which we're really excited about. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting things going on in the MPLA, but really we're looking to be that source of information and knowledge for the industry. And we can't do that without the network of individuals who come together every couple of weeks and share information and, make each other better. So thanks for having me on. If there's anything else that you want me to cover, I will, but it's nice to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you, Amy. And maybe I will throw questions because I know you're in the
Okay.
conversations at the highest level, with a lot of the private lenders in our space. And majority of people who come on our calls are real estate investors of all levels, some very experienced and some, just kind of curious. So we get a good variety of mix. And for everyone, I think if everyone had a chance to peek into one of the meetings for the NPLA, I think you guys would be very proud and feel a lot more safe and secure because our industry is being watched over, and is being, protected to the best of the ability collectively amongst, most of the private lenders out there, even the biggest, of companies. And fortunately, we're able to have a seat at the table. So I always like to pass along the information that we're getting, from the NPLA, because a lot of it starts at the money level, so especially now with the interest rates and these bank failures. So there was a kind of a scare with SVB and Signature Bank going down. I don't know if anyone here on the call was affected by it a little bit, but it sounds like everyone's going to be made whole. But we still had the second and third largest bank failures ever back to back, right? So what does that mean for us? Like I I never thought when I got into real estate, all I did wanted to do was wholesale, because I thought
Yeah.
wholesaling was a lot less risky. It was something that we could scale. With when I saw fix and flip and stuff, like to me, I knew nothing about construction, right? So I wanted to stay with wholesaling, something that's scalable. But as I've grown, and my career has grown, and I've matured as an entrepreneur and an investor, um, I start to realize that you do have to play the game from all facets, especially, when things are kind of uncertain and there's volatility in the market and the market is shifting, then you have to be ahead. And the way you stay ahead is staying in the know, right? That's why, like, when COVID happened, NPLA was huge for us because we didn't know what to do. The whole road shut down, right? Like, even on the
Yeah.
calls, we're kind of debating what to do, right, Amy? Like, that was
Yeah.
crazy times. And thinking back, because the NPLA was founded in 2019, correct? So right before.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
since its founding, like, I feel like the association has been tested multiple times. Like, it hasn't stopped being like tested. And somebody put it, Amy, in words where it was it John that said it's like this is a coming of age moment for the NPLA?
Oh, John Beecham, I think.
That was John Beecham. Yeah. So we're so
Yeah, no,
grateful.
that's, I mean, thank you. And I think like right now, what you were talking about the bank failures and, um, you know, the private lending industry, just like any other industry in the markets, they go through cycles, and it's really important to have that network that you can rely on. And right now we're really just talking about what do these bank failures mean for liquidity in our space, like in the private lending industry. And so that's the biggest question right now. And I think, we'll see what happens even in the next couple of weeks. I think the Fed comes out with their policy statement tomorrow. They're meeting today and tomorrow. So that will be interesting to see what happens as a result of that meeting and the decisions that they make. And then we're all going to be at the conference this weekend. So hopefully there's going to be a lot more information shared. And but really it's about the liquidity in our space. It's about what the capital providers, what next moves they're going to be making, and them sharing information with originators. And really that's feedback they're getting from investors, right, on the ground level. So
Yep.
it'll be interesting, just the feedback. But yeah, I like the way that you put it. You have to stay in the know. That's important. It's joining calls like this and listening in and seeing what people are saying and what types of moves they're planning on making. And so that's just the platform that we try to provide through the NPLA. So we'll continue to do that and be there. And but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few weeks for sure.
Yeah, and do you know word on the street whether it what if they're gonna raise, and if so, how much, or if they're gonna pause?
Well, I thought their latest was that they're going to raise it 25 basis points, but I could be wrong. I'm not an expert, but I thought that's what I saw. But we'll see what happens tomorrow when they come out. And any move will be interesting just to see kind of
Yep.
what moves then capital providers will make. And I mean, we're seeing this banking crisis is not something that's just subject to, Silicon Valley or just Signature Bank too. I mean, there's issues that are happening all over the world. So we'll see what comes of that. And really, this is kind of like you said, it's a coming of age moment for our industry, but it's also I don't know what happened with COVID and interest rates going to zero, and we're seeing the effects of it now almost, right? Like we're seeing effects years down the road. So
Yep.
um I think just like with these changes now we're going to be seeing effects in the months and years to come. This isn't something that's just going to be figured out in the next few weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. And it will be interesting. I've been hearing 25 basis points as well. And the only reason why it's so interesting because I'm watching the Vegas market, right? Guys, I've been talking about it for a few like months already. And been I've been watching the prices go up and then come down. So there's clearly confusion in the markets in many markets nationwide. And I think it's important to go back to the fundamentals, right? And let's look at the market at the macro level and then dive down deeper into the micro level, because ultimately whenever there's like a big change in the market, you want to stay local to where you invest, right? And because then you know that market intimately. Because even if you look at previous some markets during the last crash or the Great Recession, some markets didn't get hit that hard. Like Hawaii, has seen a correction, but it wasn't that bad, right? Because we're a very strong equity market. Vegas, on the other hand, is a very transient market, especially back then. But since then, at the macro level, I've been seeing a lot of money go into Vegas, a lot of investment going in, sport franchises, infrastructure, they're the Boring Company, there's tech companies out there. So I always saw Vegas as an emerging market long term, which it was. It was growing about 8% year over year for the 3 years before COVID, right? So then when 2020 came, it was a sharp turn down and a sharp turn up. And now we're kind of dealing from the fallout from that. So the spike up during 2021 was 32% in Vegas, right? So the question again that I'm watching is, okay, if 8% was steady normal growth year over year, and if that continued on for about a year and a half, then that's another, I'd say about 12 percentage points of appreciation that normal appreciation we should have seen from right around 2021 to now. But since it wasn't normal appreciation, it was 32% within that span of about 18 months. Okay, so that tells me there's roughly about maybe 20% of that is kind of fake equity, in my opinion. So I'm watching those prices. If I'm gonna be in Vegas making offers, like I'm gonna be making offers at the bare minimum 20% lower than the highest comp that sold during the peak moment. So I'm not looking at comps from 6 months. I'm still looking at those comps because you have to know what the appraisers are going to look at, right? If you're getting financing. So you have to understand that. But for myself, I know 6 months ago comps are not accurate. I'm not going to work off those. I want to know what the peak inflated number was and then work my percentages down there and then double check when I do hit the numbers of 6 months ago comps. That's going to just be my second guide. So for me, what I've been seeing is that there's a lot of confusion. Some markets are going to go up and down, You know, Vegas, the moment rates go down, like properties start going into contract, you know, which is kind of a good sign. But with these bank failures now, they got bailed out. I'm sure they're not going to bail every single bank out from here on out. So I'd be careful. So what we have to ask ourselves is, what do we do? You know, because I think before this happened, many of us never considered about the bank going upside down and then we losing our money, right? Now we actually have to think about that. So how do we mitigate that, right? So for us, fortunately, we weren't exposed to either of the banks except for, I believe, bill pay. Layla was saying bill pay was wrapped up in SVB, and they had a lot of money in there, and they service all of our payments, you know, to our team and contractors. So they weren't affected because they felt that they had enough liquidity, and then the government came in and said that they're gonna backstop everybody. So now it led me to the question, because I was feeling it's right about that time where we need to start making a lot of offers out in Vegas. But because of this, now I'm watching again, because last time I learned, I made a mistake during COVID. I thought there was no way that the market was going to continue to go up, right? When they shut down travel here in Hawaii, which is our number one driver, you know, economic driver here, I thought for sure we're going down, you know, and I was wrong, because I didn't take into account the government coming in with trillions of dollars worth of stimulus at basically zero cost, right? And so the market went up because everybody had money to spend. Everyone had buying power. Money was cheap, right? So we remember that market. And now we're going to have to figure out, how do we taper back down from that? You know, how do we get to real true values and correct? And along the way, how do we align ourselves to be in position to take advantage of opportunity, right? So that is what we've been focusing on. We know that there's confusion in the markets. And I want to just read some notes that I took during the last two NPLA calls. Oh, thank you so much for recording them, Amy, by the way.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
They're so valuable. I watched them like multiple times, both of them, and it's such a blessing that we're in this room. And I think hopefully one day we can get, you know, some of our people here into the NPLA as well, because it'd be good to have the voice of people who are actively investing, you know,
Yeah.
boots on the ground. I think that'd be a huge value. But so just quick notes that from our previous calls is that given all of the interest rate hikes, we're still not in a deflationary environment yet. We have unemployment still very low. Inflation, although coming down, is still high in the sixes, I believe, when the target is 2%, right? So if they let these banks fail, what would have happened? Like, would it have corrected? You know, but if that's the case, then that's a lot of depositors' money that's not, you know, that's gone, right? And so that the big lesson for us that we can learn. So what we're doing too is while we're in Miami, since there's no Chase Bank here, while we're in Miami, I have an appointment to set up an account with Chase, and we will hold majority of our funds, you know, with Chase, because now that this is a real threat and a real potential problem, I think we all, especially if you're managing investor capital, like we have to, you know, because I don't know how to underwrite these banks' balance sheets. You know, like we rely on the regulators for that, but they dropped the ball, I feel, you know, like somebody dropped the ball, because that was pretty bad what happened with the bank run, you know. But it's not just the bank run. They weren't financially, they say they were financially solvent on paper, but it sounds like they weren't, you know, because you can make things look good on paper, but things are not going well. And it sounds like that's what was happening, that they just, and then word started to get out and people started to take their money out and tell their buddies, you know, and the billions of dollars kind of like within hours because of technology now, right? Which is another thing I want to talk about. is disruption with tech. Okay, so we're not in a deflationary environment right now, which is telling us that interest rates will continue to rise. The bond yields are crossing 4%, in some cases 5%, which it's making it more attractive for private. It's making it more attractive, so private lender like deals, the guys that are trading, even our capital partners, the guys that they're selling to, they have to compete now with a 4 to 5% bond yield, and it's not easy, so that's why a lot of the money left our space as well, because there's a lot less riskier places to put money that can pay a pretty decent yield. So that's an issue right now for our space, liquidity. Let's see. Now, even with that though, the feeling is that there's still a lot of money sitting on the sidelines, kind of waiting to get in. They're just watching what's going on, so, and this is actually what John told us too, is it may not even mean that the space money will come back to our space only when they stop raising interest rates or when they start lowering interest rates. Maybe it's just that they lower from 50 to 25 like they have been. That might bring the confidence back into our space to where there'll be more money, and then there's more deals trading, and then there's more money for us, higher leverages, lower rates, like that's what we want, right? So, but the biggest thing, honestly, that I got out of the calls had nothing to do with the bank runs or interest rate hikes or loss of liquidity in the space. The biggest thing I pulled away from our call and was that they're making moves to try to get a rating agency to rate our loans. Okay, and why is that exciting? Well, because when you have a rating agency that can, and it's not, they said it's not going to be Standard & Poor's or Moody's, one of the top echelon. But if we can get it rated, because right now they're saying like only about 10%. I think John Beecham was saying this. That currently the bond buyer universe is only participating at about 10% in our space. Once we are able to rate our loans, there will be a monstrous increase in capacity to lend and a lot of money to flow through our space. So this is great, and this could be great news. And John was saying that he believes it's a 50-50 chance that a deal could occur by the end of the year, which would be huge for our space, because then that's more money in, more liquidity, and that always leads to like higher leverages and lower rates for the investors, which means that we have more buying power, which means we could buy more houses, which cleans up more neighborhoods, which provides more jobs, which provides more investment opportunities for private investors, right? It's all good. Right now is it's kind of, everybody's a little kind of watching, but to me, I think if you're watching, it's watching to come in at the right time, like how we're going to do in Vegas, right? So let me just Amy, I'm sorry to keep calling on you, but because my thoughts here is, and I'm trying to I always try to explain how this industry has come about, because the private lending space, the hard money space, right, it's only been institutionalized like 7-8 years ago. And the guys who kind of spearheaded that, I feel, and Amy, maybe you know more, is like John Beecham, the Eric Abramovich, is like, they're pioneers, I feel, in our space. How do you feel about that, Amy? Or am I missing somebody?
I would agree. And I'm definitely new to the space, but I would say John Beecham, Jeff Tennyson out of Lima One, Eric Abramovich from Rock Capital, definitely all big players. I would also say Jeff Tesh at RCN too has played a big role in that. So yeah, I would say all of those guys.
Yeah. So when they kind of brought the big money into our space, I feel, and they're continuing to do that. Like it seems like John's kind of spearheading that alongside of other people. I don't know who else is involved, but getting our loans rated would change, I feel, everything. I don't know if it, like, that's the biggest thing I got from that one. It wasn't even like the bank failures and all that. I was like, wow, that would be huge for everyone. So hopefully something comes at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens, especially with everything going on right now in the markets. But yeah, that's the goal. And of course, that would be huge for our space and huge for lenders. And so yeah, I mean, that's the goal for sure. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so everybody cross your fingers, cheer them on, like we're
Yeah.
gonna support as much as we can, because that would be huge for our space, I feel. And with the real estate investing space and the loans that we do, right, and the loans that we borrow, will be taken a little bit more serious. We're going to the next level. So I think it's going to be huge for our space, and we should be very fortunate that we have guys like John Beecham, and who is kind of pioneering our industry still to this day. So before we move on, does anybody have anything to say about the markets and any input at all? The markets and anything with the bank runs, if anyone has anything that they're doing that they think would be a good idea to share, please let us know.
I'm trying to take out as much as I possibly can on HELOCs right now.
Are they changing terms and rates right now with HELOCs?
One of my HELOCs has adjusted up to almost 8% now. But then it has not adjusted back down at all. So I think I'm expecting that one to maybe come down to the mid sevens, low sevens. But in terms, actually, so that's with Bank of Hawaii. The two I'm getting right now are with First Hawaiian, and they just lowered the rate. It was 5.2. The introductory rate for 5 years was 5.2, and now it's 4.95. So I'm like,
Is that
yeah, I'll
interest
take
only?
that. I'll lock that in. Well, I mean, like the payments are interest only, yeah. But I mean, of course, you can pay interest and principal if you want to.
Right. Yeah. But it's not like it's a revolving, like it's a standard HELOC at, wow, the rates went up a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a standard HELOC. I mean, they have the fixed rate loan option also, so you can lock any. I think you can lock any increment of like $10,000 or more, or something like that. So like if you have a 200,000 HELOC and you draw 50,000, you can lock that 50,000 to be at the current rate, the 5, whatever, 7, whatever percent it is. And then the rest of it would remain variable. But yeah, basically it is a traditional HELOC. And then they just have that teaser rate like for the beginning. So it's it's gonna be 4.95, when you set up the auto payment and everything. So I was like, yeah, man, I'll take that for, why not? It's free money to be sitting there, and at the very least, like I can just go and invest it with some of the guys that I know that are paying consistent, guaranteed promissory note returns at 10, 12, 15%. And I'll pay 5%. It's like a perfect arbitrage. But anyways, yeah, I'm just like, for me, I don't know. I'm like, let me just have some cash ready.
I think
The question is, like, do I trust the HELOC to stay there, or do I draw all the funds out and start paying interest on it just in case it's gone tomorrow?
Right. Is there a clause in there that they can revoke the line at any time?
Good question. I didn't look for that. I just assume there is, right? Because
Mhm.
like it didn't happen to a bunch of people in the Great Recession.
Yeah. They usually
The
have
loans were
something
just
in
called.
there. Yeah.
So a lot of people are doing that right now. A lot of people are afraid that the HELOCs are going to freeze up. So they want to, pull as much as they can out and transfer it elsewhere in case that does happen. You know what I mean? Hey, Greg, your HELOC, is that a 10-year drop point?
Yeah, I think it's a 10-year draw, 20-year repay. Yeah, that's the standard, right? 10 draw, 20
Right.
repay. Yeah, I
Right,
think
right.
so. Yeah, I figured like, I mean, the chances that I even have it after 10 years, it depends on what I use it for. I mean, if I end up using it to
Right.
buy a rental and then I lock it all for 30 years, then yeah, I'll have it, right? But like my other HELOC that I got in 2019, that was like, 3% or whatever when I first got it. Now
Yeah.
that the intro period's over, it's up to 8%. I'm like, I'm not using that thing. I'm gonna probably just,
Right.
close out that line and maybe open a new one on that property too.
Hey,
Yeah, it's some weird
Chris,
times right now.
what do you
What's up,
think?
brother?
What do you think? What are you hearing for tomorrow's announcement? And what's your thoughts in projecting, like maybe to the end of second quarter?
So tomorrow, there's more probability that they're gonna do a 25 basis point hike, but then there are talks about pausing, which would be kind of crazy. Um, Again, it's all just speculation. Nobody really knows. It's all just, an opinion. I do think that, later this year, the rates will start to they'll come down, coming down like 25 basis points increments, until they figure out inflation, but if this banking crisis, if there's more banks that, are beginning to fail and it starts becoming a crazy crisis, I think that they'll start pivoting, in June and in the summertime. It's crazy. Nobody really knows what's really happening. It's crazy.
Dude, supposedly, I didn't verify this, but the EU had everybody was like, okay, yeah, they're definitely like not gonna go with the anticipated 50 basis points now after everything that happened. I think they met like maybe a few days ago. I'm not sure exactly, but then supposedly everybody thought like, oh, they're probably going to do a zero, probably just going to not raise, or maybe they'll do 25. And then I guess they still went through and did the 50 basis points anyways. So that got me thinking like everybody's saying we're going, they're probably not going to go over 25 because of the banks now. And just with the way
Right.
Powell's been, I'm like, man, I wouldn't be surprised if he just sucker punches everyone with the 50 basis points again.
Could you imagine that?
Oh
Another
my
Paul
You know
God.
George.
what? Like, yeah, I mean, you got a point there. Because, like, if you think about it, and he's never strayed yet. They said we'll do whatever it takes till the job is done, right? And the job ain't done.
Right.
So, the tricky thing is though, it's like, okay, they broke the system, they broke it, right? And are we gonna panic and overreact and be like, okay, let's not break anything else, or is it like this is supposed to happen, right? Because that's a deflationary event for sure. But when you backstop them and you bail them out, that's an inflationary event. So if you're gonna backstop them and bail them out to save the depositors, then that's an inflationary event. And so if you're not gonna raise rates, that's another inflationary
Second
event
wave.
in these times. So I don't see how they don't raise. It's just, now that you say that, Greg, like maybe it could be a possibility. The only reason why I think they won't do that is because I don't think people are ready, for a 50 basis point hike. They're starting to feel the difference between the 75s, the 50s, now the 25s, and it broke the system. So I think it's going to be 25, but regardless, every time he hikes, I hear companies in our space go out of business, and some of them are big, some of them are very big. And now that I think about it, and maybe Amy, you probably know for sure, but Alex was the first one to bring this up. It's like, he said, hey, do you notice that the majority of the companies that are going upside down or out of business, they're not in the NPLA, so and that's like, now I have to think about all the ones, especially the big ones who I know, they weren't in the NPLA. And I think there's a correlation.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of organizational disruption for sure. And I think that the MPLA helps with just that communication and understanding of what moves are being made, and why. But there are a few of the companies that have gone under. I mean, there's been just different reasons for all of those, right, that we've seen. So, but yeah, none of them thankfully have been in the MPLA, at least in the last couple of years. I know COVID took out a couple early on, but then after that, it looks like things have stabilized as far as the companies in the MPLA.
Yeah, I mean, that's great news. Okay, so I just wanted to thank you, Chris, for sharing too, and Greg. And I think that's the best way we position ourselves through something like this, so that we're on the right side of it, is that we put our heads together collectively, right? There's a lot of smart people here, a lot of resources on the call, even though it's a small room today. But, you know, I think that's what we're doing. You know, in times of uncertainty, like usually there's opportunity as well. And that's when it's best to align yourselves with mentors and with partners, you know, which is what we're doing. And that's why the MPLA is so valuable for us. And, you know, we're going out to meet our partners and make sure we're going to be okay. And we plan for the rest of the year. So I think that's, you know, we all need to kind of put our heads together. And with that said, the last thing kind of I want to talk about, because I feel it's an important thing that I think is getting overlooked, because it's not necessarily so much in our space, but it is the upcoming potential disruption. I don't even want to say potential, like it's going to disrupt with the new AI technology, right? So it's been fascinating, because one thing that one of our mentors, Mark Filler, he buys other companies. So he used to own a company called Jordan Capital. He ended up selling it to Blackstone, which became Finance of America Commercial, which just got bought out by Rock Capital, which is Eric. So Mark has been around. He's built multiple businesses, you know, in the private lending space, and now his company looks to purchase, either acquire fully or portions of private lending companies like ourselves, right? So with that said, since he's one of our mentors, like he's the perfect guy to ask, like, what do you look for in a company before you buy it? You know, and he said, well, one, you know, the people, the process, you know, and but one thing that he did that did stand out to me that caught me off guard was he said, what type of technology do they have? You know, so I had to ask, like, what do you mean, like a CRM or something, like software and automation? And he said, yeah, but more like, I don't know, lead generation, or like, and Leonard, who's a mentor of ours too, has also said, there's like, what is the secret sauce? You know, you gotta have the secret sauce. Otherwise you don't have anything that's worth anything, right? And so our heads have been spinning, like, what are we worth? You know, like what do we have, right? And so for us, one was technology was always in the back of my mind, you know, and thank God, like we have, you know, young guys like Aiden on our team, who is I guess has the energy and the interest to chase the rabbit hole down, you know, and because the technology, I don't know if you guys have experience yet with like ChatGPT and all of this, you know, tech that's coming out. It's ChatGPT 4 now, I think. But it's pretty outstanding, borderline scary. And so we've been utilizing AI kind of throughout our company now. And I think now that is our secret sauce, you know. So Mark was right, Leonard was right. And because we kept our eyes open, you know, my friend Sam, who I grew up with, he has the license to sell this software, this technology here in Hawaii. And honestly, if I didn't take that meeting from Mark and I didn't hear it from Leonard, I probably wouldn't have invested in the AI. But since I did have that, my eyes were open, and I at least considered, because it's very expensive. You know, it's thousands of dollars a month. But what it does is it for us, it handles all the outbound. So all the outbound lead generation, you can plug it into any type of channel, you script it out, right? It starts off really raw and it makes mistakes. It's embarrassing, for a little while, but it learns and you correct it, you train it to your tonality, your vocabulary. So after watching it and seeing it that it's working and it's producing a huge ROI for us, to me, I feel it's almost like our duty to give this information that if you guys aren't implementing or at least researching some sort of AI technology into your ventures, then hopefully this conversation could be the one to spark that for you. Because I feel that if people aren't careful, especially real estate and finance is an old industries, so it moves slow. But if you can get ahead of it, by utilizing and getting creative in how you can utilize technology like this, I think you're gonna have an edge, coming out when this starts to get, pretty much implemented in every aspect of our lives. So the other thing, and maybe Aiden, if you want to talk about the AI and how we've been using it, it's been so fascinating around it. Oh, hey, bro, can you go? Can you share?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is just once I realized that AI, it's either you learn how to use it and you find ways to implement it in your business, or your competitors are going to use it and they're going to find ways to implement it into their business, and then you're going to be left behind. Just because already I use it, different tools, different softwares, not just ChatGPT, but implement into Google Sheets so it can can create summaries based on the sheets, can find can do data scraping for me. I have it in Gmail, so it can do responses for me. Another thing is, in our industry, we do a lot of like letters of explanation and stuff. And so you give it quick summaries, it can give a fully fleshed out, detailed letter of explanation that would typically take like 30 minutes. Now takes me 3 minutes. And so, I see myself saving probably 2 hours a day and just finding ways to implement it. I mean, another thing that we do is, so loan guidelines for us, it's confusing. It can get really tedious and boring. It's 60 pages, a guideline for each product that we have. And so I found softwares that can read through it. And now in simple, like plain language, we can ask questions about those guidelines and get plain language answers and sources of like where it says, where it comes up with those guidelines. And so, I mean, for anyone, for investors, the same thing, yeah, as Corey was saying, for automated outbound lead generation, for wholesalers as well. I really think there's strong implementations that we could definitely use to help automate and give us an edge, because everything's about being first to the trigger for a lot of this stuff, so you don't get left behind.
Aiden, are you doing that? Like, I'm not a tech guy. I don't even know how to turn my computer on. Is this like, you're talking about like using Chat GPT is like responding to your emails and stuff?
Yes, so there's like APIs, or even easier than that, there's just like Google Chrome extensions that you can add to your email, and then it can read, if you're in a thread, it can look through the thread to gain kind of like background, and then it can summarize, like you just tell it like, hey, respond to him, say yeah, we're good for whatever he's saying, and then it'll flesh out a response for you.
Oh, okay. So meaning like you tell the AI in a nutshell, oh yeah, let him know that's fine with us. And then AI does, here, dear so-and-so, thanks for your email. Yes, that will work for us. Let us know, blah, blah, blah. Right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Like you just
Yeah,
spit
so
it
it's
out
not,
and
it's
then it
not
puts
like
it into
a,
a professional email?
exactly. So it's not like an auto response yet, but at the same time, Google is about to release a new tool in which, like, it's not just going to be an extension. It's going to be built into Google Docs, Google Sheets, everything, with their own AI that they have, where it'll be able to do it more seamlessly than just an extension.
Can you guys see my
Oh,
screen?
dude, I gotta figure that out. Yeah, I see
So
that.
Aiden
Corey,
set
I
me
gotta
up
learn
with
how to
it.
do that.
It's this little extension here, ChatGPT extension. So okay, let's just test it. Write
Okay.
me a summary of
GPT.
the housing market in Las Vegas. Ooh.
See, like
So
I
then-
want to, I'm like,
Oh.
I want to stay up with this stuff, and I want to make sure I don't fall behind. So I get Chat GPT,
Oh,
and I
gotta log
go,
in.
hey, I asked her like, hey, can you run comps for me on this property? And she's like, no, I can't do that. And I was like, okay, I guess she can't help with real estate stuff.
Definitely, it's not there yet. But
Oh,
what it can do is
is there too
it,
many
it
people using it right now? I didn't
oh yeah,
subscribe.
yeah.
Is it like
Corey-
up to date? Like if you
so
ask a question that
ChatGPT
took place yesterday, is it up to date?
ChatGPT is not. All of their information is from 2021 and prior, but there's like Bing AI, which uses GPT-4, which is what ChatGPT runs off of, but that one will actually look through the internet for sources as well. So that one is a completely up to date to completely new information, and it's sort of even more intelligent than ChatGPT. And that's through Microsoft.
I just thought about that when Greg said that he asked it for comps, and I'm like wondering if it's like completely up to date, within the last like 3 months or 6 months, looking at comps, or if it's data going from like the previous the year, like 8 or 12 months ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think that would be a lot of like specific data it would have to grab. There probably could be some sort of a if you can bridge the gap between maybe like Zillow APIs and like an AI tool to be able to look through it, but I don't think there's a software that can just do it up front, and I don't think the Bing AI or ChatGPT has that that option yet. But I mean, it's just so crazy. 6 months ago, none of this was even in anyone's foresight of what we would believe that AI could do, and so I'm sure whatever someone can think of can be done in the next few months.
So crazy. Such a good tool. Such a great tool.
Corey, can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Kurt.
So yeah, AI is there, and I think Corey was on a demo I shared with him. Remember Corey? And it has the capability to connect to what you guys are looking for. And if some of the people on the call trying to connect AI, like, how is it like? Why should I do this? We're all using AI. Think about your credit cards. You know, when you call your credit cards for your balance, what is the first thing they say on the call? In English, press 1. In Spanish, press 2. You press 1, and they say for bank balance, press 1. And they're asking you all these different questions. And at the end, you don't know if it's a real person. And at the end, and then they connect you to a customer service because they're trying to find out what are you looking for.
Yeah, it's a qualifier.
Exactly. And that's what AI is. And Google's on Hawaiian Airlines website, right? You're checking the airlines. What pops up on the bottom right-hand side? A chat box and says, how can I help you? And da 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 da. So it's been going on for years with AI, and that's the most competitive things that's going on in the market. If you don't have some kind of form of AI, you don't have an edge, because while we're all human beings, we have to go to sleep, right? But while we're sleeping in different time zones, someone is Googling something. We all Google. And what I like about AI, it doesn't complain. It doesn't go on vacation. It doesn't ask for a raise. It's on there 24 hours, 365 days of the year. And that's your assistant. And you can yell at it and won't get offended. And that's what artificial intelligence, we're all using artificial intelligence. So I'm very happy you guys are looking into it. You should dive into some more. But if you want more information, Corey has my number, or I can put it in the chat box if you want to
Yeah, put
learn
in the
more.
chat, Kurt.
You guys can utilize artificial intelligence. It's here to stay. It's not going away. But thanks for letting me speak.
No, yeah, thank you, Kurt. I mean, it is something that I think is happening faster than we're ready for. I think I think we gotta be careful with this thing, but they're putting guardrails in place, but I mean, all it takes is this thing to crack, jailbreak one time, and now we gotta compete against artificial intelligence as well in this world. That'd be a scary one. But the way that I've been seeing it possibly disrupt like our space. I mean, I'd like to open it up to ask your guys' opinion too. Like, because if you don't stay ahead in your industry, like, unfortunately, you might get left behind or get wiped out. And things change very quickly. So especially in the tech space. So in our side, I feel AI can provide so much value, especially when it comes to for us processing loans, right? You can have it tag the client, the borrower, hey, we need these documents, please give me these documents, like all the mundane tasks that normally would take up majority of our time. So Sam, before we pulled the trigger and I was listening to him and listening to the pitch and his presentation, what stuck with me is he said, like 95, like after the 3-month kind of training period, within 3 months, if you're feeding it enough like leads and things to master, it should be able to do 95% of our team's job and way better than they would be able to do it. And so that's a big, that's a big kind of promise, or like, that's a big statement. And so I was thinking, okay, well, we'll see about that. But the first message, the first response we've seen come through, it was one of those where the AI pinged the person. It was like an email or a text, and it said something like, "Hi, my name is so and so from Keiko Capital, and this is this is what we do." They responded, "Fuck off." So they responded, "Fuck off," and then the AI responded back like super professional, like, "My apologies, sorry to didn't mean to offend or whatever. Like, let me take you off our list." And when I seen that, I realized, oh, okay, yep, this is a game changer, because those fuck off calls and those people, even though like you're not hurting their feelings, to be honest, they're just that type of person, right? But it hurts our feelings, right? It hurts the person cold calling. I don't care how much thick skin you have, or how much you bought into the culture of hard sales and always be closing and that shit. But no matter what, you're human. You get offended. We get emotional. We get exhausted, and we get frustrated. The AI does not. You can feed it all day long, like Kurt said, all night long, and it helps to qualify. So by that, you only talk to people who are interested and who are in need of what you have. So I think it's a very powerful technology. Is anybody utilizing any type of AI or ChatGPT in any process of their business? Because I would really like to know. Because I think if we share strategies like how we're doing today, we can help each other.
Some of the AIs, they put is everyone familiar with this program?
Yep.
Yeah. So
but explain it, Kurt.
Disc is, you should all take the disc. It tells you what kind of personality you are. If you're a control, demanding salesperson, I think all of you guys should take the disc program. So sorry, I mean to cut you off, Corey. So what they're inputting, some of the AI is inputting a personality into the AI. So someone comes onto your website, they ask certain questions. So, and it filter till it comes to you. So you're not having these people as a looky look kind of thing. And they put a personality questionnaire on there and they ask specific questions. So when it comes down to you kind of know more or less what this person is looking for. Because some realtors I know do ask the disc questions because they want to know where they are. Not necessarily if they're crazy or not, but that was just a joke. But just where they are personality wise. kind of thing. So when you're diving into AI, ask the question, do they implement this program? And if they do, that's great. You should look into it. If they don't, then you're just going to have all kinds of people hitting up your website. And unless you like that, but I think it could be just a waste of your time. You want to be specific, like, oh, who you want to talk to. Again, sorry, Corey, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's interesting, yeah, because they could even implement like the characteristics, from each profile, your disc profile. So, wow, who knows where this is gonna go? Like, I was thinking like, oh man, this is gonna be awesome, but now that I've seen the power of this thing, I mean, you can ask your questions. Like Aiden just the other day, like he said, the guidelines for us is like it's boring, they're long, but we need to know them, like every single word, so, but what he did was he was able to, I don't even know how you did this, dude, but he was able to take the AI and have it ask the question about our own guidelines. And we found out that we actually can land in rural. It's just a leverage cut, all this time we're telling you about if it's gonna appraise for rural, we can't do it. Right. And now granted, the leverage cut is pretty big. It's like 10 to 15%, but we can still do it. We didn't know that, like we asked, or Aiden asked the AI to read the guidelines, and it did, and it pointed it and cited it directly to, that section of the guidelines where it clearly states, right? So it's provided so much
Corey,
value. Greg,
just to clarify, are you saying that I didn't know that before, so I'm really interested to know it when this comes up in my own deals. You saying if it's zoned rural, like on Maui we have RU 0.5, which means rural half acre, or are you saying if the appraiser designates that location as being a rural location?
my understanding was if the appraiser, as long as the appraiser does not deem it rural on the appraisal, then we're good to go. But it doesn't mean that in the most companies have an internal review. So they'll take the appraisal, they'll read it, but they don't necessarily have to take that value. They might come up with their own value, be like, what, no, like this appraisal is wrong, like they'll take our own, and that's happened to us before. It's put us in bad spots. We hate when that happens, because then the borrower is like, why do you make us pay for an appraisal and you don't even use it? Like you don't even go off the value. It's like, that's happened. It puts us in a bad spot, but look, it's our capital partner's money, so it's only so much that we could say. But yeah, so that's my understanding. But Aiden, I don't know if you want to confer. I would say like if the land is marked as rural or whatever zoning that is, there is a chance that in internal review it might get killed. But we would now
interesting, because on Maui we've got like some lots like that are not rural but are zoned rural. Like my neighborhood where I live, my lot is residential, but I mean just a couple houses down, all of Pukalani is all zoned rural. Maui Meadows, where like Josh Dorkin, Brandon Turner, like all those guys live down in Kihei, is all zoned rural. Like, I mean, it's like right in the middle of Kihei, right? It's not very rural, but
definitely not rural.
I think we would, like an appraiser, I don't think would call it rural, but it is zoned RU half acre, which is rural.
No, then clearly, because we would be able to do that. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I know.
Okay. That's why I had to clarify, because I'm like, holy cow, what if I did a flip like in Maui Meadows?
Right.
I wonder if I'd have a problem getting funding.
Yeah. No, the one thing good about our guys and our partners is that they've even used this term, common sense underwriting, where it's like, look, if the deal makes sense, like it makes sense, but if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. So anyways,
right on.
We actually have to jump on another call, but I hope this was of value for everybody, at least to spark some interest, in disruptive technology like AI, and also to pay attention to what's going on out there, because there's a lot of news and there's a lot of movement, and let's be on the right side of change, because change is coming regardless. Like the world is changing before our eyes. Let's be on the right side of it. So thank you guys for coming in this week. I know it's a little early, but Friday, we're not gonna have coffee talk because the team's gonna be traveling. But we'll see you guys the following Friday. Reach out to us anytime if you need anything in the meantime. And hope you guys all have a great rest of the week, great weekend, and a great end to Q1. We'll see you guys next week. Aloha,
Thanks, Corey.
guys. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Greg. Gene.
Thanks,
Adam.
guys.
You guys.